Hey, everybody. Welcome. We're going to have yet another great late night conversation. Let's do it.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. We're going to have yet another great late night chat. Now, as usual, first I'll give opening remarks. Then from there, we'll do the roll call, find out who's watching. Then after that, I will answer your questions for the remainder of the night. So send your questions for the second half of the show. Go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin. Send your questions. John already sent a question. He will be the first one answered because he sent the first question. You can also do Rumble rants, and you can cash at me at Caleb Maupin 22. But the best way to do it is to go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin. Now, in terms of announcements, register for our national 7-day training program. The Center for Political Innovation is spending 7 days in Chicago. It's going to be awesome, August 12th to 19th. It's going to be a great few days in Chicago. So please register and join us. Get to know other CPI members. It's going to be awesome. That's the registration link. You can register today for our national 7-day training program. That's the announcement we got for tonight. We are the Center for Political Innovation. This YouTube channel is about building an anti-imperialist organization. We want a government of action that fights for working families, a new America free from imperialism. Check out the Center for Political Innovation. Yep, that's us, the Center for Political Innovation. We are the anti-imperialist movement here in America, building, organizing, and doing the work that nobody else is doing for a new America beyond imperialism. And amazing things are happening. Last night, we just had the Juche study group. Session number 2 went amazingly well. Shout out to Wesley, a new member who came on the stream, did a great job. Noah did a great job. Different members and friends from around the country were on there. We were building. So, yeah, we're going to follow our normal format. As I said before, first the opening remarks, then the roll call, and then I answer your questions. So questions for the second half of the show, go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin. Now, the topic for my stream tonight is what's happening right now as we speak, which is that U.S. President Donald Trump is in China. And I've got video of that, and I got a lot to say about that. But before we get to that, there is kind of a pressing announcement, which is a good friend of ours, Joti Brar, who has spoken at CPI conferences before. She's a leader of the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist. She is currently in jail in Kenya. She was in Kenya for a gathering of the World Anti-Imperialist Platform. And she and other activists from around the world that had gathered, they had a small demonstration, and they have been arrested. I don't quite understand the circumstances, but I know that Joti is an important friend and ally of ours. She's done important work for anti-imperialism for decades, and we want her released. And we have stood by her brother, who has faced unjust persecution for criticizing Israel, arrested for anti-Semitism for criticizing Israel in Britain. And now it looks like she was arrested in Kenya at an anti-France demonstration. So we want Joti Brar to be released. Release Joti Brar. We want to make sure that she is released. I know in South Korea right now there are protests going on around the clock, and that the local activists in South Korea who are friends of Joti's have set up shop outside the Kenyan embassy to demand that she and other activists there be released, which is quite dramatic. So we shall see what happens next. But, you know, we are thinking of you, Joti. We support you. We're paying very close attention to the situation. Same with the situation for your brother, who is being, you know, unjustly charged with anti-Semitism simply because he criticized Israel. And we're paying close attention. Free Joti Brar. Free all the activists in Kenya who were participating in this anti-France rally and got arrested. So I wanted to mention that. So yes, U.S. President Donald Trump is in China right now. And they just, you know, had the official greeting. You know, I guess I'll show you, you know, the moment where Donald Trump met Xi Jinping. Where they had their meeting, right? They had the military out there. They had kind of a ceremony. I'm sorry, but doesn't it look like Donald Trump probably can't hear a word he's saying, and he's just nodding along like, I mean, I'm sorry. I'm looking at this clip with fresh eyes here. I think Donald Trump is just doing his best nod, trying to look presidential and important. I don't think he has any clue what President Xi Jinping is saying. I don't think I think he's just, this is the height of presidential silliness. That with it when he like shoots his jaw over, like, what in the world is this? You know, is that what you do? You just like shoot your jaw? Oh, oh yeah, nod. Sorry, Xi Jinping looks presidential and Donald Trump looks like he's going through the motions. This is actually hilarious. I'm seeing this with fresh eyes. I downloaded the clip. I hadn't watched it yet. And I'm just like, this looks like comedy. This is like comedy gold. I have never seen anything like this. Xi Jinping looks like a president and Donald Trump looks like someone trying to do his best impression of what looks presidential. All right. Oh, he's pointing that way. Okay. Now I look back at him. Now I'm going to look at it with the way he's pointing again. Oh, yeah. Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. And then he pointed that way, and so I looked that way. And then he looks at me, and I nodded, and then he pointed that way, and then I looked that way. Oh, now I'm using my hands to make a circle, to make a gesture with my hands. I look very presidential right now. Xi Jinping looked completely normal and natural, just like a normal leader. And Donald Trump looked like he was doing his best impression of what a president looks like. I'm just seeing that with fresh eyes. Now, the big thing that everyone says is not going well for President Trump is not what happened there in the ceremony. They're saying that that the arrival, didn't go well for U.S. President Trump because he was not greeted on the tarmac by Xi Jinping. That when Kim Jong-un went to China, Xi Jinping greeted him on the tarmac as he came out of the plane, and Donald Trump, they had a bunch of people to greet him there, but not Xi Jinping. They're comparing how Kim Jong-un was treated when he arrived in Beijing versus how Donald Trump arrived. That there was not a, Xi Jinping was not at the tarmac when Trump arrived. They're saying this is kind of a snub.
Log right in, virtual friend, let's begin the quest. Put my skills to the test, better than the rest. Hear the sound all around, the synthetic beats. This adventure can't be beat. You can choose, you can guide.
But the other thing is that the foreign ministry of China, prior to the arrival, gave a pretty strong statement about U.S. sanctions against China, as well as the U.S. attack on Iran.
的问题，我们坚决反对没有国际法依据、未经联合国安理会授权的非法单边制裁，将采取坚定措施。
So basically, they're saying that, the USA has put all kinds of sanctions on China to try and crush their economy, to try and suppress different entities in China, to try and prevent countries from trading with China. And China's saying that is completely illegitimate under international law. Unilateral sanctions without the permission of the UN Security Council, completely illegal.
维护本国企业和公民的正当权益。关于伊朗的战事，当务之急是全力避免战端重启。 而不是恶意关联抹黑中国。
Yeah, and the main thing is to focus on preventing a relapse in the fighting and not on pointing fingers at China for being friendly, right? So this accusation is floating around media that China is somehow involved with Iran militarily. Well, Iran and China work very closely together. They're allies. Iran was completely unjustly attacked with no provocation. The United States murdered their supreme leader, blew up an elementary school with absolutely no justification. The United States viciously attacked Iran and has killed hundreds of people. Now the Strait of Hormuz is closed and low-level confrontations are happening, and there's a ceasefire that seems to be holding for the moment. And this is not a good situation. And China has every right to stand by their ally, Iran, a country that they buy oil from, a country that also had an anti-colonial revolution. And the United States has absolutely no justification in criticizing China for doing that. It's the United States that violated the UN Charter with an act of military aggression, an act of war that was completely unjustified, that the American people didn't want, this is an unprovoked war of choice by the United States that had absolutely no justification whatsoever. And so if Iran is getting some help from China, fine. I will say that Donald Trump, I almost kind of don't even care what Trump says anymore. I've looked at his Twitter and it's just so bad at this point. I don't even care what Donald Trump says, I don't know. Does this look good? Xi Jinping looks like he's in a little bit of pain there. It's like, okay, yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm shaking hands with him. Look at that. Yeah. Look, Trump is way more into it than she is. I'll just tell him that. It's like, really? Trump is there talking to the media and she is like, yeah, okay. All right, buddy. Yeah, we're shaking hands. Yeah. And then there's another clip that's surfaced. This is kind of neat. This ceremony they have when world leaders come to China is actually a really neat ceremony. Hey, China knows hospitality. That's pretty cool. In addition to like the big military ceremony, they had a bunch of kids holding Chinese and American flags, jumping up and down, cheering. I think that was kind of cool, right? That would make me feel good. If I went to a country and I got off the plane and there was a big crowd of kids jumping up and down with my flag and that country's flag going, yay, I would feel good. Who wouldn't feel good, right? That's some awesome Chinese hospitality. But that said, look, as much as I hope that things between the USA and China improve, I hope that the war in Iran can come to an end. I hope that the USA and China can become economic partners. You know, my hopes are not high right now because Trump isn't the only one, who is arriving in China from the United States. Trump brought a buffoon, an idiot, a liar, a con man, a jackass, a criminal, an awful person with him. Trump brought Narco Rubio with him. And Marco Rubio is given interviews. He did a long interview with Sean Hannity on Air Force One on the plane. He's doing long interviews, and Marco Rubio, Trump says crazy things that don't make any sense. But Marco Rubio, he says things that are not true. He lies, and he says things that are not logical and are completely contradictory. And so tonight I thought I am going to talk about how there are things that Marco Rubio says that are obnoxious to me because they are inconsistent, illogical, and he himself has to know better than this. But he says them, and it infuriates me. And that Marco Rubio is, he's from a Miami Cuban family, and he loves to pander to dumb right-wing anti-communism and say stupid things. So tonight, I'm just going to show you various things that Marco Rubio has said, and we're just going to take them apart because Marco Rubio is accompanying Trump on the trip. So here we go. This is Marco Rubio on the plane to China, giving an interview to Sean Hannity.
The world has seen Iran was building up a conventional capability where they would have so many missiles and so many drones that they could overwhelm anybody's defenses. Once they had that, nobody could do anything about their nuclear program because they would say, if you attack our nuclear program, we will wipe out 6 countries in the Gulf region and you won't be able to defend against it. You won't have enough patriots, because you get these swarms of drones, these swarms of rockets. They were on the verge, and a year from now, they would have been at that point. The president said that's an intolerable risk. People are struggling to make that connection, but the connection is very real. They were building such a high number. They were going to have so many drones and missiles that no one can attack Iran because the result would be catastrophic for the region. And once they had that immunity, then they would break out towards a weapon. We knew that. The president is not going to allow that to happen under his watch.
Wow. How dare a country be able to defend themselves? I mean, that's just something we can't tolerate. A country having the ability to deter another country from attacking them. That is, oh man, we got to stop that. Have you noticed they moved the goalpost? First, it was Iran was about to get a nuclear bomb. Now they've admitted that there's absolutely no basis for that. So now the argument is Iran was going to be able to defend itself from an attack. And once they were able to defend themselves completely from an attack, then they would develop a nuclear bomb because no one could attack them to prevent them from getting a nuclear bomb. Are you starting to notice how stupid this is? This is getting stupider by the minute. So first, last summer, Donald Trump said, I completely destroyed and obliterated their nuclear program. And now the argument is that, well, no, you didn't. We were told by Israel that they're always about to get a nuclear bomb. And now the argument is, well, they weren't going to get a nuclear bomb. They were going to develop weapon systems to prevent other people from attacking them. And then once they had the ability to protect themselves, then they would get a nuclear bomb. Meanwhile, Israel has hundreds of nuclear bombs. And no one says anything about it. And everyone's just fine with that, right? I confronted, one of my epic moments was when I confronted the State Department about that. Right? And Israel has hundreds of nuclear bombs, has never signed the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. This is me at the U.S. State Department.
So an email has recently come to light, an exchange between Jeffrey Leeds and former Secretary of State Colin Powell, in which he acknowledges that Israel has, quote, he says 200 nuclear weapons. And the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty has not been signed by Israel. Under U.S. law, the United States should cut off support to Israel because it's a nuclear power that has not signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, according to Colin Powell, correct?
Shouldn't you ask Colin Powell that? I'm not going to speak to this particular traffic, and I'm certainly not going to discuss.
Israel doesn't have nuclear weapons?
I'm certainly not going to discuss matters of intelligence from the podium. I'm not. I have no comment on that.
Okay. Well, the email says the boys in Tehran know Israel has 200. All we targeted on Tehran, and we have thousands. I mean, that seems to indicate that there's a knowledge of an Israeli nuclear program, which would make U.S. aid to Israel illegal.
I think I've answered your question.
Okay. Well, let me ask. Is that do I have the correct understanding of U.S. law that we are not allowed to support a nuclear power that has not signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty?
Look, we obviously support the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. I'm not a legal expert on all the tenets of it, and I'm certainly not going to speak about the details that you've revealed here in this email traffic. That would be inappropriate for me to discuss one way or the other. I'm not going to do it.
There are sanctions imposed on North Korea in response to their nuclear proliferation. There were sanctions put on Iran in response to allegations of nuclear proliferation. And now we have this email from Colin Powell saying that Israel has 200 nuclear weapons. Why is Israel not facing any consequence for this?
That's a very colorful way of getting back to the same question you just asked me. But I'm going to refer you back to the transcript when you see it this afternoon to what I said before to your question. Saeed?
You're familiar with this email, right?
I'm not.
Oh.
I have not seen it. I can't speak to the email, and frankly, even if I'd seen it, sir, I wouldn't engage in that kind of a discussion from the podium.
Yeah. So Marco Rubio is telling us we have to have a war with Iran because Iran might be able to defend themselves to the point that no one could blow them up for potentially trying to get one nuclear bomb. Whereas Israel, that has just murdered hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, has been committing crimes before the entire world, has been bombing Lebanon, is condemned by the entire international community, has never signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, has a stockpile of hundreds of nuclear weapons. And the USA not only doesn't do anything about it, it continues giving them aid and giving them money, which is a violation of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. This whole thing is completely ridiculous. And Marco Rubio, yeah, he's saying, well, we just have to, we had to blow up that elementary school. We had to murder the supreme leader because Iran might have been able to defend themselves, at which point then they would have started maybe possibly getting a nuclear bomb. This is so absurd. But Marco Rubio says a lot of dumb shit, and we're going to talk about some more dumb shit. And I mean, if there's anyone who's going to ruin this trip to China, it's this. This is him talking about China. Marco Rubio talking about China.
What is your read on President Xi? I mean, you read that their economy is struggling. You read that he's isolated. You read both Putin and President Xi have a pretty high degree of paranoia. What is your read as you look at President Xi from a distance going into the meeting?
Yeah, I think my read has been what I think has been for a while, and that is China has a plan. I mean, they clearly view themselves, they believe they will be the world's most powerful country. They'll surpass the United States, and they have a plan to do it. And they're executing on that plan, and I don't blame them. If I were the Chinese government, I'd have the same plan. We, on the other hand, don't view it that way, and we don't want to see anything. We're not trying to constrain China, but their rise cannot come at our expense. Their rise cannot come at our fall. So there's an area where we're just going to have a difference of opinion. But my view of them and of the government in China is they're very confident. They have a plan, and they're trying to execute on that plan, which is fine. I understand that from a nation-state perspective, but when that plan is in conflict with the national interest of the United States, we need to do what's right for the United States. And that'll come up on this trip, but more importantly, that'll be a feature of this relationship for a long time.
Right. So China has a plan, and they're implementing the plan, and he's fine with China having the plan, except for where that plan conflicts with America. I mean, okay, not very profound words, but yet when Marco Rubio talks, right, it's like he doesn't seem to realize that China exists. because Marco Rubio has been justifying U.S. crimes against Cuba lately. And he's been saying that U.S. crimes against Cuba are not impacting Cuba. This is what he said.
Economic deal.
What do you mean an economic deal? Look, Cuba's economy needs to change, and their economy can't change unless their system of government changes. It's that simple. Who's going to invest billions of dollars in a communist country? Who's going to invest billions of dollars in a communist country run by incompetent communists, which is even worse than communists? The only thing worse than a communist is an incompetent communist. And so their system of government has to change, because they will never be able to develop economically without those changes. Economic change is important. Giving people economic and political freedom is important, but they come hand in hand. They come together.
So listen to what he just said there, right? Let's listen to what he just said. China can't exist, according to Marco Rubio.
Economic deal.
What do you mean an economic deal? Look, Cuba's economy needs to change, and their economy can't change unless their system of government changes.
Their economy cannot change unless their system of government changes. Now, I seem to notice a country that had a Soviet-style economy and implemented market reforms and dramatically changed its economy without overthrowing the Communist Party, without having a counter-revolution. According to what Marco Rubio said, this never happened, right? Because the only way a country's economy can change and improve is if you get rid of the communist government. Oh, and who would ever want to invest in a communist country? I don't know. Who would ever want to invest in a communist country? Look at Shanghai. I mean, no one was investing there. I mean, you have to overthrow the Communist Party before anyone invests there. Look at all this. Oh, wow. Who would ever want to invest in a communist country? No communist country can change its economic system and have reforms, market reforms, and improve things. No. Who would ever want to invest in a communist country? How does Marco Rubio get away with saying this? The whole world has seen China, that he's currently in, changed its economy without overthrowing its government, and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars have been invested in China. But he says the only way Cuba's economy can get better is if the government is violently overthrown, right? And also, when the USA violently overthrows countries' governments, how does that work, right? How's Libya doing since the USA violently overthrew their government? Are they doing great? How's Iraq doing? How's Libya doing? What was the fall of the Soviet Union like? Was that just randy-dandy all across Eastern Europe? So that's what's going to help Cuba. No. No one would ever invest in a communist country, not China or Vietnam. No one's ever invested there. And these communist countries can't have market reforms. You just have to overthrow the government. And that's what makes things better, is violently overthrowing the government, because every place where you have a CIA coup or the USA violently overthrows the government, things just go amazingly well. It's like he's lying, right? And what annoys me is if he was in the room, he would say, well, China's not communist anymore. And that's what he would say. Oh, no, China, because of the market reforms, they're no longer communist. And keep in mind, these are the same people that told us Obamacare was communism, right? Obamacare, which is completely private healthcare that's kind of like regulated by the government, that's communism. But China, where you have a Marxist-Leninist party in power, you have 5-year economic plans, you've got state-run banks, and even the private companies aren't allowed to do just whatever's profitable. They're all directed by the Communist Party. If, the party directs them, tells them what to do. Many of the private companies were actually built by the Chinese government. Huawei, the world's largest telecommunications manufacturer, was basically a company that was created by the Chinese military. But China's capitalist. China's free market capitalism. But we can't have healthcare in America because that's communism. It's unbelievable, right? And Marco Rubio just lies. And who would ever invest? If state control and state ownership and state central planning doesn't work, then again, do I have to put the video on? Then this could never have happened, right? This video is a complete debunk of everything that Marco Rubio stands for. All this stupid anti-communism, communism just never works, and all the people are look, 800 million people lifted out of poverty. the world's largest steel industry, the world's largest telecommunications manufacturer, the world's fastest trains, right? The space program, it's getting helium-3 from the moon, breakthroughs in fusion energy, the best cell phones in the world. Well, none of it. Nope. Communists, no one would ever want to invest in a communist country. It would just never happen. No one stops to ever think about this, right? And no one ever bothers to think about this. And the second you mention this to one of these people, they just say, well, China's capitalist. And these are the same people that would tell us that, think Mamdani is a communist because he raised the taxes on Wall Street by 2%. And that's communism. New York City's communist because taxes went up by 2%. But China, where the government plans and organizes and runs the economy, that's capitalism. That's capitalism. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It is so ridiculous. And no one bothers to call them on it. And no one bothers to call them out on it. And it is infuriating. It is dumb American right-wing anti-communism that it's not thinking. It's not thinking. It is not thinking. And you'll notice when they're demonizing China, it goes back to being communist. If you ever talk about China's economic achievements, oh no, well, that's just because they're capitalist. But then if they don't like China, if they're accusing it of human rights violations, if China's doing something bad, oh, it's communist again. It's communist again. I cannot stand this illogic, right? China can't be communist when they're doing something bad and capitalist when they're doing something good. Okay? You got to pick one or the other. And if you're going to insist that China's capitalist, then suddenly you have to admit a country can be capitalist and have state central plans and a ruling Marxist-Leninist party and state-run banks and 50% state ownership and then you have to admit that's capitalism. And then you can't say that a 2% increase in income tax is communism because you're saying that China is capitalism. And you can't say that, and if you say that China is capitalism, when you're criticizing China for this or that, the latest allegation about Uyghurs or Tibetans or I don't even know what, well, then you can't blame that on communism, can you? You have to admit that they're not communist. And I'm so tired of this. There is no logic about this. Is China capitalist or communist? It can't be both, but it is based on what is convenient for the argument. It's what is convenient for the argument. And the worst thing with these people is they are always so condescending as they make the argument. It's always like, if you point out China's success, it's like, you're so dumb. You think China's communist. You're retarded. You're an idiot. They can't just disagree with you, right? You have to be a complete idiot for thinking that. And then 2 minutes later in the conversation, when they're bashing China for something that they're accusing China of, it's communist, and you say, wait, I thought you just said, oh my God, you didn't know China's communist. They're always assholes. And I'm so tired of it. The condescension, the arrogance, this assumption that there couldn't possibly be an argument against having free market capitalism. My favorite, then sometimes you'll reduce them to, okay, well, things got better in China. This is my favorite logical argument. Things got better in China due to the market reforms, and that proves capitalism is better. Well, geez, folks, the other night it was cold in my bedroom. It was cold, and so I turned on the heater, and my room got more comfortable. So therefore, I should light my bedroom on fire, because that proves that more heat is always the answer. That's not logical. Right? Yes, China had some big adjustments in its economy in 1978. China had the reform and opening up, but it's still largely state-run. And to say that China having success with their current model proves that it's okay to have unpaved roads all across America and that we should just have total free market capitalism is not logical at all. And, China needed to change. The Soviet way of doing things has its limits. It gets you over that first stage of industrialization, but especially when it comes to things that make life fun and tech innovations and stuff. Yes, you need to utilize the market for those kinds of things. And I'm not opposed to that, but I don't think we should have a society where profits are in command. I believe the state has an obligation to control the economy to make life better. Right? That the economy should be organized to serve public good and not the profits of a few. And I look at China, where they utilize the market, but they have state-run banks and state-run industries, and the government comes out every 5 years with an economic plan about making the economy better and organizing the economy to improve the population. And they're constantly measuring improvements in people's lives. I view that as a success. I view that as a successful model, and I think we should have the same thing here. We should have a government in America that doesn't sit back and sit on its hands while the country gets poorer, but instead takes action and is accountable to the public about how to make life better, and is coming back to us every year with, we improved living standards, we made life expectancy go up, we reduced unemployment, we increased electrification, we increased access to healthcare. We should have a pro-growth, pro-humanity government that takes action to organize the economy. And that's just common sense. That's just common sense. And China is a great example of that. And the same people that are constantly telling me, oh, you can't do that. Communism, if the government runs the economy, it just never works and everyone starves and is miserable. Then they turn around and, oh, China. Well, yeah, we don't talk about that. And then, it is hugely frustrating. It is hugely frustrating. And the worst part is, and you know who are the worst people about this? Communists. I'm going to tell you, the communists are the best friends of this, right? Communists in America are the biggest bunch of dysfunctional fools you'll ever meet. The overwhelming majority of them don't support China. Very few of them support China. Very few of them even defend the Soviet Union. Now, most American communists, they'll just do, oh, that's not real communism. That's not real socialism. We all been told our whole lives, communism never worked. It failed everywhere it's ever been tried. And I don't know where these people think this is a logical argument, but they say, oh, well, that just wasn't real communism. If you put me in charge, though, I could do it better. And they completely write off and erase the entire experience. That's the overwhelming majority. There's a small minority that they call tankies, right? That I was for many years a tanky that will actually defend these countries. But even they do it in a very, very childish way. And they do it from a place of, I hate America. I hate American working people. And and it's just sad. Communists are more responsible. First of all, in America, we're bombarded with this idiotic communism just never worked. It just never worked anywhere. We're bombarded with this. And then on top of that, to make matters worse, when people finally meet somebody who says communism is good, they say, that's true. No, I can't tell you folks, my whole life, I've been told that, this is what I was told, is communism is where everyone gets paid the exact same wage. I don't know what country in the world that ever happened, but that's what I was told. In communism, Caleb, everyone gets paid the exact same wage, no matter how hard they work. And it just doesn't work because there's no incentive to work. Now, that's what I was taught about communism. And my teachers told me this too. And this was just common sense. Yes, Caleb, well, this is what it is. In communism, everyone gets paid the exact same wage because communism is about making everyone equal. Communism is about making everyone equal and everyone gets paid the exact same wage. And then it all just falls apart, just like the Soviet Union fell and everyone starves because it just doesn't work because you can't pay everyone the same wage. Yeah, no country in history has ever implemented that. That has absolutely nothing to do with anything that Karl Marx ever wrote. This is something that American propaganda made up, okay? This is just an idiotic thing. Communism, as Marx understood it, is public ownership and control of the means of production, centralization and control of the means of production, right? And then Marxism-Leninism is an understanding that capitalism has moved into the imperialist stage, and so nations are fighting for their national liberation and breaking out of imperialism. No. That's not what we were taught. Communism is this really dumb idea that everyone should be equal, and obviously that doesn't work. It's so funny that, hundreds of thousands and millions of people died for communism. Clearly, they were all just so stupid they couldn't see that everyone can't be equal, Funny, all the tens of thousands of people that died in the Chinese Revolution, someone should have just told them, duh, you can't pay everyone equally. They just never thought of that, right? Human nature. And I love this. They always say human nature. Well, Caleb, communism doesn't work because of human nature. Human nature. Yeah, all these people that, all over the world, millions of people became communists. Millions of people gave their lives for this. But they were all just so stupid. They didn't realize human nature, right? Anti-communism in America is so unbelievably stupid. It is the stupidest. It is non-thinking. People don't think about what they say, and nobody questions it. They say the most blatantly, obviously false things. and nobody questions it. And I can't blame anyone for this more than the communists, because the communists, I mean, 95% of them, 95% of the people in America, the small minority in America who call themselves communists, 95% of them are Trotskyites or anarcho-communists, or they don't defend any of these countries. And you know, I mean, even the arguments that they make, I mean, it's just unbelievable. And the communists go out of their way to become the stereotype, right? For example, now the big thing that Bernie Sanders and AOC, they're talking about income inequality. Income inequality. I've spent my whole life explaining to people, no, communists don't want everyone to be paid the exact same wage. No, it's not about equality of income. It's about centralization of the means of production, public ownership of the means of production. And then they get out there. Yes, you know, Bernie Sanders, I want to fight against income inequality. That's why I'm a socialist, because I want everyone to be equal and there not to be income inequality. You know, and I'm just like, okay, wow, okay, you know, I've spent my whole time trying to tell people we're not that stupid thing we learned in elementary school, but I guess we are. I guess we are. That's what we, I mean, it's like, you know, and you know, these communist groups, I mean, most of them are, I mean, there are a few of them that are just crazy. And I mean, the actual Communist Party has been run by the FBI since the 1950s. Right, you can Google Morris Childs, who was a member of their national committee, was given the Presidential Medal of Freedom for the FBI. Communists in America are like the worst representatives possible, and they just reinforce these delusions that everybody believes, all these stupid things that are just very easily debunked. You know, no communist country has ever had success. Really, who were the first people in outer space? Who beat Hitler? You know, who had the biggest power plants in the world? Who went from being an impoverished agrarian country to being a superpower in the 1930s with the 5-year plans? What country did that? Oh, you know, find me a communist in America that'll say that. Find me. You won't find any. You'll find probably less than the number of communists that are capable of making that argument are countable on my hand. Okay. No, none of them are capable of doing that. Most of them will give you this, well, it wasn't real socialism. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, I mean, it's like all the achievements, none of that. No one can say this. And they just get up and repeat this claim. That's just never worked anywhere. Just never worked anywhere. And they get up and repeat it. And then they go to China. And I don't even know what to say. So I don't know. I am frustrated by the way Americans talk about communism. But Marco Rubio is worse than that. It's not just the way he talks about communism. He just lies through his teeth. I mean, I'm going to put on some of Marco Rubio's latest. This is his claim about Cuba.
On Cuba, oil blockade on Cuba. There's no oil blockade on Cuba per se. Here's what's happening.
All the lights are just out for no reason. I mean, I don't know. I'll let him talk and then we'll go back through it. I'll let him say the whole thing and then we'll just talk about this. He just lies through his teeth here.
What they've done on Cuba. Oil blockade on Cuba. There's no oil blockade on Cuba per se. Here's what's happening with Cuba, okay? Cuba used to get free oil from Venezuela. Used to give them a bunch of free oil. They would take like 60% of that oil and resell it for cash. It wouldn't even go to benefit the people. So the only blockade that's happened is the Cubans have decided, the Venezuelans have decided we're not giving you free oil anymore. And you can only imagine nowadays, the way oil prices are, no one's giving away free oil, much less to a failed regime. So the problem with Cuba is worse, okay? Their economic model doesn't work. Doesn't work. And the people who are in charge can't fix it. And the reason that I can't fix it is not just because they're communists, that's bad enough, but they're incompetent communists. The only thing worse than a communist is an incompetent one. And that's what, so incompetent communists run that country, they don't know how to fix it. They really don't. And we have 90 miles from our shores, a failed state that also happens to be friendly territory for some of our adversaries. So it's an unacceptable status quo.
He did not say one true thing. In that this entire clip, he did not say one true thing. Everything he just said is a lie. There's not one true statement in what he just said. Let's go through it bit by bit.
What they've done on Cuba, oil blockade on Cuba. There's no oil blockade on Cuba per se.
Yes, there is. The U.S. sanctions on Cuba are ridiculous. If you import cupcakes into America, you have to sign an affidavit that there is not 1 ounce of Cuban sugar in any of your cupcakes. You cannot trade with Cuba and trade with America. The embargo on Cuba that has been condemned by the United Nations over and over and over again is one of the most stringent and strict embargoes of any country in the world. And yes, the United States is preventing them from getting oil like any other country would be able to import. Yes, they are. Look at the details of the U.S. embargo on Cuba. The USA is trying to prevent Cuba from getting anything imported to them. They have set up a blockade around the country where they can barely import anything. No country, no company can trade with Cuba and trade with America. The biggest economy in the world, America, basically says, if you do business with us, you can't do business with Cuba.
Here's what's happening with Cuba, okay? Cuba used to get free oil from Venezuela. Used to give them a...
That's false. I've been to Venezuela. It wasn't free oil. Cuba sent thousands of doctors to Venezuela. I have been to the Cuban healthcare clinics in Venezuela. Cuba sent medical personnel in exchange for that oil, right? When that program started, it was Cuba sends doctors that give free medical care to people all over Venezuela, and Venezuela sent, it's not for free. Cuba does all kinds of stuff to support Venezuela. No, it is not for free. Like, how does he claim this? You know, Cuba sends thousands of doctors to Venezuela. The Cuban military trains the Venezuelan military. No, it's not for free. You lie. Like, how does he lie like this? He just lies. And no one calls him on it. No one calls him on it.
Oil. They would take like 60% of that oil and resell it for cash. It wouldn't even go to benefit the people.
It's funny that all the lights are out now in the country because I guess they were just not used. I mean, have you seen how Cuba's lights have gone out because they can't get Venezuelan oil? But I guess they weren't using it though. They were just selling it, reselling it to make money. You know, and where does he get this number 60%, right? I mean, and their lights shouldn't be out now. I mean, he's just lying. He's just lying.
The only blockade that's happened is the Cubans have decided, the Venezuelans have decided we're not giving you free oil anymore.
Yeah, it's not like the U.S. just kidnapped their president or anything. It's not like the current president has an indictment against her. It's not like there's like U.S. military ships on the coast of Cuba and the coast of Venezuela blocking ships from getting by. I mean, Venezuela, totally of its own free will, decided to just wake up one day and say, oh, no, we're not going to do business with Cuba anymore. No, there hasn't been any pressure placed on Venezuela. There hasn't been, the USA didn't invade the country and kill hundreds of people and kidnap their leader and take him to the New York City. He's just lying. Can you believe this man just lies? He just lies. Like, he's not one true thing in this entire clip.
And you can only imagine nowadays, the way oil prices are, no one's giving away free oil.
Yeah, no one gave Cuba free oil. Cuba traded with Venezuela on the basis of that. Cuba has done huge amounts to support Venezuela.
Much less to a failed regime. So the problem with Cuba is worse, okay? Their economic model doesn't work. Doesn't work. And the people...
They're trying to change to be the economic system. Cuba has been trying to change their economic system to be like China's economic system since at least the 1990s. They have been trying to implement market reforms. They are trying to update to the mixed economy model like Vietnam and like China. And they're unable to do it because of U.S. sanctions. And if you go to Cuba, you talk to their economists, they say, we're studying the Vietnamese road. We're studying the Chinese road. They want to change their economic system. They can't do it because they're blockaded by the United States.
People who are in charge can't fix it.
Yes, they are trying to fix it, and they would like to adopt the Chinese system, but they can't because the United States has put a horrendous embargo on them.
And the reason that I can't fix it is not just because they're communists. That's bad enough. But they're...
Yeah, right. I mean, China never changed their economy because they're communists and no one can change. Vietnam never changed their economy because they're communists. Laos never changed their economy. Oh, they're communists. They just can't change. Like, how does he, does no one in the room stand up and shout at him, you are a lying sack of shit? How can he just say these false things? A communist country just can't change its economic model. That's just never happened anywhere in the world before. Oh, yeah. I mean, am I the only person in the world who knows facts?
Communists. The only thing worse than a communist is an incompetent one. And
okay. Well, and
that's what. So incompetent communists run that country. They don't know how to fix it.
They do know how to fix it, and you're actively preventing them from fixing it. You've barricaded their economy. They would like to do what China and Vietnam have done, both of which are communist countries, but they've adjusted to have a model that is more pro-growth.
but I guess they just can't.
They don't. And we have 90 miles from our shores, a failed state that also happens to be friendly territory for some of our adversaries. So it's an unacceptable status quo, and we'll be addressing it, but not today. Okay.
He did not say one true thing that entire time. He did not say one true thing. All right. And it infuriates me because I'm somebody who actually cares about this stuff and takes it seriously. I care this, I take this seriously and I care. And I see this and it just makes my head want to explode. And there's nobody there who can say to him, wait a second, what is this? And, he lied about, I can show you another thing he did.
If you know this, there's the Cuban government and they have a budget. And then there's this private company that has more money than the government does. None of the money in that company goes to build a single road, a single bridge, provide a single grain of rice to a single Cuban, other than the people that are part of Gaisa. So that's what we're sanctioning, is a company that basically is taking anything that makes money in Cuba and illegally putting it into the pockets of a few regime insiders. So that's not sanctions on the Cuban people, because the Cuban people don't benefit from Gaisa.
And this is a lie too, right? They put sanctions on a company that facilitates trade with Cuba. And he says, oh, they're the only people affected by it are this company. No, it's very difficult to trade with Cuba. It's extremely difficult to trade with Cuba. There's a company that facilitates it, and the U.S. government is now targeting this company and trying to crush this company. And he says, oh, that won't affect the Cuban people. That won't affect the Cuban people. Oh, no. It's just, he just lies. He just lies. And I find it infuriating to listen to this. And there are all these people that just nod along with it because it matches what they know. Communism bad. It's absolutely infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. I just wanted to mention that, because I can't stand this. So Trump is in China, and the world economy is screaming because of the Strait of Hormuz. And here we are. And it's certainly frustrating. But listen, folks, it's late. So I'm going to do the roll call now, and then I'm going to answer your questions. So if you got a question for me to answer in the second half of the show, by all means, send me buy me a coffee, send me a Rumble rant, but yeah, go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin and send me your questions. And then, that'll be good. So yeah, I'll answer any questions people have got. Names and locations. John McCarthy in Chicago. Good to see you. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Brentwood, Paul, Deep Green. Good to see you, Paul. Hasib in Ottawa, Canada. Ryan in Kansas City. QC in LA County. Good to see you, QC. Names and locations. Brooklyn, Phil in the house. Good to see you. Joe in California. Joe Gutierrez. Jane in New Zealand. Daniel from Ruhr Valley, Germany. Liverpool, UK. Very, very good. Mark Shelnut in Georgia. Yusuf in Durham. Alex in Brazil. The Seasoned Noob in China. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. Who is with us? We got Marvin in New Jersey. Good to see you, Marvin. Good to see you. Gregory in Victoria, British Columbia. Names and locations. Kansas City in New Mexico, or KC. It's not Kansas City. Casey in New Mexico. Arlene in Milwaukee. Good to see you, Arlene. Names and locations. Anybody else? Oh, another Caleb in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We got Minnesota. Very good. Cece in Joliet. Good to see you, Cece. All right. It's good to see you all, folks. Really, it's great to be here with all of you tonight. It's spring. I'm sneezing in a lot because of allergies, but life is good. We just had a great CPI. We have our weekly Wednesday night check-in with active members, and the active members chat went very well. Very excited. Dan out in LA, Patricia in Massachusetts. Great things are happening. We're building an anti-imperialist movement here in America, and it needs to be built. It absolutely needs to be built, and we are building it. We are doing it. And I'm very, very excited about the future coming up, all the activities we've got. There's something very, very exciting happening in the next few days. Oh, good evening, Caleb. I'm Rachel, also in Milwaukee. Solidarity. Great. Good crew of folks here. Some great stuff is going to be happening in the next few days. There'll be a big announcement from me, and you'll be hearing about it. Very exciting. You know, I don't want to give too much away, but great, great things are going on. The great golden state of California. Good to see you. Great things are happening. And, you know, you just got to be optimistic, because at the end of the day, we're winning. History is moving in our direction. Imperialism is doomed, and humanity will continue to build and grow and expand, and we're going to win. But that said, you know, we are living in the death agony of imperialism. The global financial system centered around Wall Street and London is getting desperate as the world slips out of its fingers. But anyway, so yeah, like I said, if you've got any questions, go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin. That's the best way to send your questions. Send me a question to answer, and we'll go from there. So yeah, buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin. The first question was sent by John. And John said, I wonder whether President Trump is going to side with Tulsi Gabbard or the CIA. So right now, this is referring to the files. I guess, from what I understand, and I guess I don't want to get the story wrong, but I believe this is related to files related to the JFK assassination. Yes, the JFK assassination and MK Ultra. And that 40 boxes of files were seized by the CIA from Tulsi Gabbard's office, right? So Project MK Ultra was a CIA mind control program. John F. Kennedy was president of the United States, was assassinated in 1963. Tulsi Gabbard had 40 boxes of documents about that in her office. The CIA seized them from her office. Now, Tulsi Gabbard is supposed to be the CIA's boss. She is the director of national intelligence. But the CIA decided they were going to take documents from her office. So now Anna Paula Luna, who is a member of Congress from Florida, has demanded that those documents be returned. And this is a whole thing. And John is asking, will Trump step in and tell the CIA, give those files back? This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. So who controls the CIA if it's not the intelligence, the CIA director? The CIA director is the director of the CIA, but she's the director of intelligence, right? There are many different intelligence agencies. You got U.S. Army intelligence, U.S. Navy intelligence, National Security Agency, FBI. Tulsi is the director of all intelligence. She's the director of national intelligence. And if the director of national intelligence is not able to tell the CIA what to do, we got a little bit of a problem, don't we? The other thing, and I'll just throw this out there, I reported on this yesterday for RT. Tulsi Gabbard ordered an investigation of the biolabs, right? So, you know about the biolabs. You remember the biolabs when the Ukraine special military operation got going? There was concern about these biolabs in Ukraine, and they were mentioned on the floor of Congress and everything. And then all of a sudden they said, if you mention them, you are spreading conspiracy theories and they didn't exist. Well, they do exist. And Tulsi Gabbard has just launched an investigation into these biolabs. This was my reporting.
Of U.S. National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard has opened an investigation into more than 120 foreign-operated biolabs, apparently financed by Washington.
Gabbard told the Post Monday in a statement that her team is going to identify where these labs are, what pathogens they contain, and what research is being conducted to end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens the health and well-being of the American people and the world. Yet despite these obvious dangers, politicians, so-called health professionals like Dr. Fauci, and entities within the Biden administration's national security team lied to the American people about the existence of these U.S.-funded and supported biolabs and threatened those who attempted to expose the truth.
All right, and for more on this, let's cross live to RT correspondent Caleb Maupin in New York. Caleb, what can you tell us about this inquiry?
Biolabs. That's a word American viewers have been familiar with, controversies in American politics. Well, Tulsi Gabbard, who's now the director of national intelligence under the Trump administration, has confirmed to the New York Post that an investigation has been launched into over 120 biological laboratories that exist across the world, including in Ukraine, and the U.S. taxpayer dollars funding them to do what is a quite dangerous activity called gain-of-function research. Now, gain-of-function research is where experiments and research are done for the purpose of aiming to make viruses more transmissible. Quite dangerous stuff. Now, foreign labs exist in more than 30 countries, and they have received funding from the U.S. Department of Defense, and more than 40 of these biolabs are located in Ukraine, and there is concern that they are at risk of compromise due to the war. Now, Tulsi Gabbard has directed the U.S. intelligence community to review and to research these biolabs, including gain-of-function research in Ukraine, and it appears that over $200 million of American taxpayer money was actually spent on more than 40 biolabs in Ukraine. This was confirmed back in 2022.
Since 2005, Biological Threat Reduction Program has partnered with the government of Ukraine to support peaceful and safe biological detection and diagnostic capabilities and to reduce the threats posed by pathogens. The United States, through Biological Threat Reduction Program, has invested approximately $200 million in Ukraine since 2005, supporting 46 Ukrainian laboratories, health facilities, and diagnostic sites. Biological Threat Reduction Program has improved Ukraine's biological safety, security, and surveillance for both human and animal health.
Now, the scandal here is not simply that these very dangerous facilities engaging in potentially very dangerous research exist. The scandal here is that the position of the U.S. government in response to Russia raising concerns was to dismiss it all as simply propaganda. We have the Biden administration on record saying that no labs exist and that claims that such labs that are engaged in such research exist. This is all just Russian and Chinese propaganda. This is what the Biden administration said.
As we have said all along, Russia is inventing false pretexts in an attempt to justify its own horrific actions in Ukraine. The United States does not own or operate any chemical or biological laboratories in Ukraine. It is in full compliance with its obligations under the Chemical Weapons Convention and Biological Weapons Convention, and it does not develop or possess such weapons anywhere.
Now, at the same time that the Biden administration and voices aligned with Joe Biden were claiming that no such labs existed and attacking now the person who is now the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, for raising concerns about them, Victoria Nuland, the undersecretary of state, confirmed their existence in testimony before the U.S. Congress. Here's what she said.
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
Now, Russia has been raising the alarm about these labs that are potentially quite dangerous for quite some time amid the mixed messages and flat-out denials that we heard from Western countries.
The Russian Defense Ministry has repeatedly drawn attention to the military biological programs that are being implemented by the Pentagon in the post-Soviet space. In particular, a network has been formed on the territory of Ukraine, which includes more than 30 biological laboratories, which can be divided into research and sanitary epidemiological ones. The analysed documents confirm that the Ukrainian Health Ministry has set the task of completely destroying bioagents in laboratories from February 24th.
Now, that was Lieutenant General Kirilov speaking about the dangerous biolabs, and it's important to note that he ended up being killed in a terrorist attack by Ukrainian forces. Now, at this point, the scandal is that the Biden administration denied that these labs existed when it appears they very clearly did. There's now an investigation being launched, and on top of the fact that these labs existed and their existence was covered up or denied to some degree, the research they engaged in, gain-of-function research, trying to make germs more deadly and make them more easily transmissible, that is certainly a danger to global health and something that should be of concern to the entire international community.
Well, it's good to know the truth is finally beginning to come out. RT correspondent Caleb Maupin, thank you for that report.
Yeah. You can't believe anything the American government says. I mean, they don't feel a need to tell you the truth. First, there were no biolabs. Then there were biolabs. At the same time, they were telling us there were no biolabs. Then Tulsi Gabbard was a bad person for talking about the biolabs. And now, yes, there are biolabs and they're investigating them. Oh, okay. That's great. Well, you know, do all the people who got up and said there are no biolabs, are they being prosecuted? Are they being investigated? Are they apologizing for lying to us? No. Marco Rubio gets up there and says, oh, you know, we're not blocking Cuba from exporting any oil. Cuba got that oil for free, never did anything for Venezuela. And Venezuela now, of their own free will, without any U.S. intervention, has just randomly decided to stop giving them for free. It's not like there's a war going on. It's not like there's been ships sunk in the ocean. It's not like their president's been kidnapped. No, it's just Venezuela totally randomly decided to stop giving it to them. We're not blocking Cuba's economy. I mean, they just lie. And now we've got 40 boxes of CIA documents about their mind control and brainwashing program, MK Ultra, and the assassination of our president, John F. Kennedy, the elected president of America in 1963. And the director of intelligence had them in her office, and the CIA said, no, we want him back, and took him back. And now members of Congress are calling on President Trump to step in and order the CIA to listen to their boss. You know, I mean, does the American government have any credibility at this point? I mean, it's like, when they tell us anything, is anything they tell us even remotely true? And they don't feel an obligation. They don't feel it doesn't. Yeah, when they lie, they can just lie, right? Trump said, "Oh, when you vote for me, no new wars." The whole time he was planning to launch a huge World War III against Iran, right? I will start no new wars under my administration. And now we're involved in a huge war against Iran, murdered the supreme leader. I mean, can you believe anything these people say? Anything. The level of dishonesty and deception. I'm not saying anything that should be too controversial here. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating because I must say that there is a type of person who is just kind of a thought conformist, who thinks that they can debunk everything I just said by saying, well, Caleb, that sounds like something insert bad person here might say. Okay. And is it true or not? Yeah, but Caleb, that sounds like something Russia might say. Okay. And so what? Russia's a country. And what if they said it? Would it be true or not? Well, Caleb, that sounds like something a conspiracy theorist might say. Okay, but is it true or is it not? Caleb, that sounds like something a white supremacist might say. What does that have to do with white supremacy? I don't know, but is it true or is it not? Caleb, that sounds like something a right-wing extremist might say. Okay, and is it true or not? But you've all met these people who their criteria for whether or not something is true is, does this sound like somebody I think is a bad person or not? Well, that has absolutely no bearing on whether or not something is true. Things are not true or false because they sound like something that might be said by a bad person. First of all, Russia, why is Russia bad? It's a country, right? But I guess you've decided Russia bad, why? But on top of that, right? People that are bad, right? There are bad people that exist in history. Hitler, Mussolini, such bad people do exist. I can guarantee you that every bad person in history has said at least one true thing at some point in their life. If Hitler said the sky was blue, the sky did not become red because it couldn't possibly be what a bad person says. That is not an argument. That's how these people argue. And what's funny is these people are all liberals now. This is exactly how Republicans used to argue during the Bush years, right? If you said, hey, I don't think Iraq has weapons of mass destruction, that sounds like something Al-Qaeda would say. Well, actually, Al-Qaeda hates Saddam Hussein, so I don't think they would shill for him. Well, yeah, but that sounds like something Michael Moore or those anti-American leftists might say. Well, okay, but is it true or not? Oh, you're saying that America is not good. No, I'm saying that Iraq doesn't actually have weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, well, that might be true, but that sounds like something that a bad person might say, someone who's against our country, somebody who hates our troops. It's the exact same way. The exact same way the Bush people used to talk. The liberals now talk this way. The liberals now talk this way, and increasingly the diehard true believer MAGA people talk the same way, right? They talk this way. There are people on the left that have finally decided, now that Trump is president, now that Trump is bombing Iran, they are allowed to think. Thank goodness, right? For the last 10 years, leftists and people on the left have not been allowed to think. Finally, there are leftists that are allowed to think. And there's a layer of MAGA people that I call the dissident MAGA, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, that are true to their principles, that as much as they liked Trump and believed him, now that Trump is doing the opposite of what he said he would do, they're calling him out. And I respect those people. But I get very, very frustrated with, the truth is right there if you want to see it. And there are people that just work really, really, really hard not to see it. It's that whole thing about you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. There are some people that are just so scared of thinking, and that's what college turned into. My whole family told me, Caleb, you're going to love college. Oh, you're bookish and you're going to love college. I hated college because college is not what it used to be. During the Cold War, yes, when most Americans could work in industry, and college was only for bookish people that wanted to think deeper than you need to in order to work in industry. Yes, college was it was like you could say it was the troubleshooter. It was academia was supposed to point out America's flaws, ask tough questions. Not like that anymore. Now all those factories have closed down. Now this memo has been sent out that everyone needs to go to college, which you don't. College is a scam. It's a multi-$1,000 scam. That's a whole nother story. The cost is astronomical and people go into debt. But they've sent out the memo. Everyone needs to go to college, right? You won't have a happy life. You're going to be a poor person. You're going to starve on the street unless you go to college. They've convinced everyone they need to go to college. And then on top of that, college no longer is a place about thinking. College is where you learn not to think. College is where you take classes and learn not to repeat things that sound like conspiracies, not to repeat things that sound like College is where they teach you not to think. And in order to get your degree, you have to learn not to think, right? And average folks, average working people who don't go to college or whatever, they actually question things, right? If you go to a gas station, the person behind the counter is far more likely to know that Russia is not our enemy, the US government is, than any university student is. I'm just telling you, average people are suffering economically. They know the government is full of shit. They have relatives who have died in these wars. They have relatives that are sitting in prison in our prison industrial complex, and they're watching their community decay, and they want answers, and they get on the internet and they watch podcasts like this. Whereas people in the universities and the colleges that are supposed to be these bastions of free thought, and they kind of were that 50 years ago, they're the people that sit there and say, well, I want to get the A. And so in order to get the A and get my professor to like me, I must say that America only spreads freedom around the world and that biolabs never existed. That's a right-wing conspiracy theory. Please give me the A. And people go to college to learn not to think. It's amazing to me. It is amazing. They've completely reversed it, right? It used to be your average American who worked in industry or whatever said, love it or leave it. This is the greatest country in the world. If you don't like it here, move to another country. And people in the colleges were the ones that said, well, there's more to it than that. Now it's completely reversed. Now average Americans are economically suffering, and the people in the universities are people sucking up I want a job in the cosmopolitan middle class of America. I want a job. I want a job in the what do they call it? The middle class. What do they call it? The PMC, the something. What's the P and PMC stand for? The something middle class. I don't know. Right. I want to be part of the laptop class. I want to have a meaningless job in a nonprofit where I want to be the diversity, equity, inclusion czar at Cornell University and make sure that we hire the right number of transgender Puerto Ricans. It's like there are very, very few jobs in that cosmopolitan professional managerial class. And, they don't make very much money, but to actually make a lot of money in the PMC, you have to really, really outdo everybody else. You have to really kiss up. So the colleges are full of people that are just desperate to get a laptop class job. Right. And so they're never going to think, and they're just trying to prove that they're conforming enough and they're non-thinking and they're obedient enough to get to be the DEI Sweet Baby Incorporated czar. Right. To be the political commissar of Woke Incorporated. That's the situation we're in. And it's very depressing and it's very frustrating to me. And that, those of us who take this stuff seriously and study this stuff and take it seriously, generally we have to be self-educated. You're not going to learn any of the stuff I teach you on here in university. You're not. You might learn vaguely liberal criticism of American society. They'll teach you stuff they didn't used to. Well, let me put it this way. They'll teach you stuff now. It's much more the conversation around racism and about crimes in American history is much broader than it used to be. But other than that, though, when it comes to questioning what the American government is doing now and all of that, it's crazy. And that they have basically labeled all dissent in our time. They've labeled it extremism or conspiracy theories or foreign propaganda. And they've basically sent the message to all these kids, all these college kids. If you believe that stuff, if you repeat that stuff, if you engage with that stuff, we won't give you the A, we won't give you the job. And so college is people desperately trying to learn not to think. But anyway, Paul sent a question, which is a good question, which is, have I seen Tucker Carlson's interview with Zelensky's former press secretary? I have seen a number of clips of it. It's very good. Now she's on the same list I'm on. She's on the kill list, right? I got added to the kill list too. That was, an epic moment in CPI history when I was added to the Ukraine kill list. I'm on the list of information terrorists of the Ukrainian government. She is now on that list. And she is exposing that Zelensky's, using cocaine. Zelensky's government is corrupt. You can watch the clips. I'll show them on here at some point. I will get to that. But yes, I've seen the reality, and this is what we've been telling you about Ukraine from day one, right? I've been telling you, the U.S. mainstream media told us how corrupt Ukraine was from day one. But then suddenly, when Ukraine became the latest trendy liberal cause, it was not okay to say. But this is, we've all known this. Zelensky's administration is cropped full of fanatical anti-Russian extremists who admire Nazis. It's cropped full of corrupt government officials that are enriching themselves. Seymour Hersh has been revealing how, he's scraping money off the top. They're all piling money into foreign countries, all the billions of dollars. I made a video right when the special military operation started, and I said, do not donate to Ukraine. And people thought that was just such an awful thing to say. And I said, if you donate to Ukraine, you're not helping the Ukrainian people. You're probably helping a Zelensky government official buy a yacht or buy a second home in Greece or in the Caribbean somewhere, and if you really want to help the Ukrainian people, demand this war end. That's what'll help the Ukrainian people, is when this war ends. And if you donate to Ukraine, you're helping the corrupt oligarchy of Ukraine, and you're enabling this war to end. And that made people mad. It's funny. There was somebody who attacked me. They made a documentary basically aimed at me. I wonder if it's still online. It was a bread tube smear video. It was called The Conspiracy Left. And they called me The Conspiracy Left. It was Sophie from Mars made this video. Sophie from Mars made this video. Yeah, it was the conspiracy on the left. And they edited it a few times because the first draft of it was so sloppy. But like, it was about, you know, biolabs, and I was a bad person for talking about biolabs. And oh, how dare he? He made a video saying, do not donate to Ukraine, calling Ukraine corrupt. And, you know, and it was just like, I've been validated on about everything I said in here, you know, and I think the version of it that's out now has even has even edited me out to some degree or other. But the piece is just ridiculous. And it went after me. It went after Peter Coffin. It went after George Galloway. And you watch it, and the whole thing has just been, has completely fallen apart. It has just completely fallen apart. So, yeah, I mean, you know, yeah, it's conspiracy on the left. You know, it would be fun. You know, maybe we can pull up some of that now, you know, and debunk it to some degree or other. What's interesting is that the first version of it called me a Holocaust denier for criticizing Hannah Arendt, and that was ridiculous, and said a bunch of stuff, and then they edited it after Peter Coffin and I, you know, streamed and debunked it. But you know, like it claims that the biolabs thing, you know, is that I've never said the biolabs in Ukraine are where COVID came from. I never said that. And, you know, it tries to make it say like, that's what we're saying. And it says no biolabs ever existed. And I mean, I showed the clip of Victoria Nuland and stuff. So anyway, folks, oh boy. But anyway, thank you. Yes, I have seen that interview. It's very good. And I will probably put clips of it on this channel eventually. I will probably get to that. But, you know, we got a lot going on. But yeah, so why don't, I will give you all one more chance to send any questions you got, and then I will probably call it a night because I'm a little tired and it's a little late and got a lot going on. And I got to finish this project. There's a very exciting project in the works that is about to be completed. I'm going to need your help with it, everybody. So when that project reveals itself, I'm going to need all of you to help me. But, you know, send any questions you've got as Rumble Rants. I'm going to put on some music while I give you all a question to send any question, and I'll give you all a chance to send any more questions you've got. And then after that, I will probably say goodnight. So anyway, I guess I'll put on, I love sea shanties. I've just always loved sea shanties, something about them. So I will put on the sea shanty, Blow the Man Down, and then I'll answer any more questions. So go to buymeacoffee.com/Caleb Maupin, send me some more questions. Blow the Man Down.
Oh, blow the man down, bullies, blow the man down. Hey, blow the man down. Blow the man down, bullies, blow him away. Give me some time to blow the man down. We went over the bar on the 13th of May. Hey, blow the man down. The galloper jumped and the gal came away. Give me some time to blow the man down. As I was a-walking down Paradise Street, hey, blow the man down. A saucy young damsel I happened to meet. Give me some time to blow the man down. I says to her, Polly, and how do you do? Hey, blow the man down. Says she, none the better for seeing of you. Give me some time to blow the man down. Oh, sailors is tinkers and tailors is red. Hey, blow the man down. And we're all of us coming to see you again. Oh, give me some time to blow the man down. So we'll blow the man up and we'll blow the man down. Hey, blow the man down. And we'll blow him away into Liverpool town. Give me some time to blow the man down. Give me some time to blow the man down. Give me time. Give me time. Give me time. Give me time. Give me time to blow the man down.
Right. All right. Well, that was a sea shanty. Blow the Man Down. And I did want to show this video. This is a video from the CPI conference we did in 2023. And it's a clip from a presentation where I talked about, I used, kind of some of the wisdom of previous organizations to talk about the kind of movement that we're building in America. So I'll put that on. Again, send any questions if you got them. If not, we'll wrap this up pretty soon because it's getting late. Wisdom that was passed down to me. We can be critical of different figures, but Sam Marcy, an important leader of communism in the post-war years, he would often talk about how at the anti-war protests that happened during the 1960s, where you'd have hundreds of thousands of people marching against the Vietnam War, there'd be these beautiful puppets that they would build. They'd have puppets of, Richard Nixon with his money or whatever. They'd have puppets of the heroic Vietnamese people fighting for their liberation, these beautiful puppets. That there were whole communities of people, and they weren't members of any communist group, but they were against the Vietnam War and had a general leftist, anti-imperialist view, and they made it their mission that when there was a big anti-war rally, they would come together and they would make these beautiful works of art as their contribution to opposing the war in Vietnam. And there were whole communities that built these puppets. It was their project, their way of being creative, of building community and coming together. And there were couples who met each other through the process of making those puppets. And a couple of years later, they were there making the puppets with their little kids that they had just had. And there were whole communities of people, and they made it their mission. This is something that we can do. Imperialism is the enemy of humanity. The Vietnam War is horrible, and this is something we can do. We have a 9-to-5 job, we have a regular life, but this is something that we can do. And we can do it together, and we can bond, and that's beautiful. And what Sam Marcy would tell his followers is that community that built those puppets, that's 1,000 times more valuable than some kid who thinks he's Lenin. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. A community like that has longevity. People are doing that their whole life and they're taking on a contribution. And that if you've been doing this as long as I have, which is, not that long, relatively speaking, but you realize that there are some people who come around and they see that they don't get the immediate result that they want. They see that they don't they don't fulfill their dictator fantasy that they have. They see that they see that this isn't exactly the way they want to resolve their parental issues or whatever, and then they go away after a year. They go away after a year. For a year, they know more than everybody. No one knows anything better. They can debate everybody, but they're gone. But those people who came together to build the puppets and build community around it and learn to work together, they keep going. And generation after generation, year after year, they build those puppets. And that is what we need to build with the Center for Political Innovation. We need a network of people who are committed to opposing imperialism, who learn to trust each other and rely on each other and carry out operations, build some beautiful puppets, some beautiful artwork, put on beautiful conferences, and keep this movement alive. That is what we need to build. We need a network of people who love each other and trust each other and can work together and can serve the purpose of representing the anti-imperialist movement in America. That is what we need, and that is what I want us to build with the Center for Political Innovation. Yep, that's a story that needs to be told. The puppet thesis is great. I saw somebody in the chat, weird coincidence, talking about the movie Billy Jack, which is a movie from like the late 60s. I actually, the other day, I realized, I did for a while on this channel, every so often I'll do a stream where I just talk about movies. So I sat there and I made a list of movies that I have watched many times, right? I said, I'm only going to list movies that I've seen many times on this list. Movies that I enjoyed enough to watch multiple times. And I made a list of about 10, 12 movies that I have watched many times in my life. And I thought I'm going to do a stream where I show the trailers of those movies and talk about those movies because people like those. We get political on here, but some nights we just talk about movies. So I'm going to do a movies stream. Oddly enough, Billy Jack is one of the movies that I have watched many times. I had the DVD of it in high school and I watched it. The original Billy Jack was a pivotal, important film. It was a counterculture, anti-war movie from the late 1960s. It's a little hokey in some areas, but it's an important movie. I will warn you, though, the sequels to Billy Jack are abominable. You know, the sequels that they made are just, whew, I was never been more disappointed. I got my hands on The Trial of Billy Jack. Billy Jack Goes to Washington. Oh man, those sequels are abominable. But the original Billy Jack, it was a very, very low budget movie, made in the late 60s. It's an action drama. Yeah, it's decent. It's a decent movie. And that the guy who starred in it was an interesting character, right? I guess he was kind of a counterculture, anti-war figure from Hollywood, kind of an independent-minded guy who was into all kinds of things like alternative health and stuff like that. Tom Laughlin. And also, I then watched. So, Billy Jack is this movie that came out that was kind of an underground hit, very low budget movie. It was inspired by another movie that he made. He made a biker movie, right, about this evil gang of bikers, of Nazi bikers who go around terrorizing people. It's called Born Losers, because I guess back then there was a tattoo that bikers used to wear. It was called Born. It said Born to Lose. And so originally, before he made Billy Jack, he made a movie about these evil bikers that go around terrorizing people that are Nazis. They're like neo-Nazi bikers who go around terrorizing people, and they're called the Born Losers. And then the hero of the movie is Billy Jack, this Native American karate expert who fights them. And so I guess somehow, the biker movie did well enough or whatever that they gave him a budget, a very small budget, to make a movie about the Billy Jack character. That movie was a hit. That movie was a quite popular film. And so then, because that movie made so much money, they gave him a budget for 2 sequels, both of which are abominable. I could not watch them. I mean, they're just unwatchable. I could barely finish them, and I never watched them again, the sequels. Billy Jack Goes to Washington, horrible. The Trial of Billy Jack, also horrible. But yeah, the Billy Jack movie is decent. Born Losers, Born Losers is interesting. It's a little bit, I don't know. Born Losers is a little bit, I don't know. I guess she saw it when it was in the theaters. I couldn't really finish Born Losers. It was a little too dark for me. But the actual Billy Jack movie is decent. It's a decent film. It's very low budget, and it's a little bit chaotic. And there are parts of it that, you can tell that they were not professional filmmakers. There's an amateurish quality to it, but that's kind of what gives it its charm. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's a counterculture 1960s movie. It does remind me. There's a movie from the same era that's not one of my favorite movies that I've watched before. It was called Easy Rider. And Easy Rider is very, very pessimistic and dark. And that Billy Jack has an element of that Easy Rider quality to it, right? Easy Rider was a huge hit movie from around the same time. When you watch Easy Rider, it's basically, these 2 guys are smuggling drugs across America. And they're smuggling drugs across America on their motorcycle, and everywhere they stop, the evil rednecks, the evil American rednecks that are ignorant and intolerant, try to kill them. It's very dark. It's a very dark, pessimistic film about this kind of, road trip by these 2 hippies, and America is this evil, mean, scary place or something. It's very, very dark and pessimistic. It is like one of the ultimate like hippie movies, but it's a really, really dark film. And what's interesting is a few years ago, they made an X-Men movie, and it was Easy Rider. And I watched it. It was one of the X-Men sequels they made. It was Easy Rider. I mean, I watched it. I'm like, they made Easy Rider about Wolverine and Dr. Xavier or whatever. And I was like, this is, I forget which one it was, but it's, it was, I mean, it was Easy Rider. I was like, this is Easy Rider. A little bit more shooting and action and fighting in it, but it was basically Easy Rider. They're biking through. They're at the beginning of Easy Rider, there's like a commune where the nice hippies are living, but they have to hide from the evil American people that are terrorizing them, and then. And then and I watched it. I'm like, they just made Easy Rider. They made the X-Men version of Easy Rider. I think it was Logan. Is that the name of the movie? I watched it. And I'm like, this is Easy Rider. Go watch Easy Rider, which was a hit film. I mean, in the 1960s, it's one of the most popular films, and it's a very influential cultural film. I think Jimi Hendrix wrote a song for the track. But Easy Rider is very, very dark. Whereas, Billy Jack is still an optimistic, positive film. It's got tragedy in it. And there is still much kind of a hatred for rednecks, for, bigoted, conservative American cowboy people are not portrayed in good light, but it's still happy. It's still Billy Jack. You feel good after watching it. That there's ugly things in it, racism, violence against women and things, but you still feel good after watching Billy Jack. You don't feel good after watching Easy Rider. You really don't. You don't feel good after watching Easy Rider. I certainly didn't. Easy Rider gave me a very dark vibe. It's a very, very dark film. Very, very dark film. But yeah, so I have a list of films that I watched and liked them enough to watch them several times. And so I made a list of I think it was 12 movies on the list. It's in a notebook I have over there. And I made a list of movies that I liked enough to watch several times. And I'm going to do a live stream where I talk about each of those films for a little bit and show you the trailer, because you can show trailers on live streams and not have an issue. So I think I'm going to do that. It's kind of a break from all the intense politics we do on here, which can be a little bit overwhelming. Look, we live in times that are difficult. We live in times that are unpleasant. So it can be a little bit difficult to just do the politics night after night after night. I get that. Look, I hope that President Trump is able to make some kind of deal in China that is good for America, that is good for China, that brings the world away from war. I really hope that that's the case. I wouldn't bet on it, especially with idiot Marco Rubio there with him. I wouldn't bet on it, wouldn't put my money on it. But, hey, China is capable of doing amazing things. It was China that got Saudi Arabia and Iran to restore diplomatic relations. China is building infrastructure over the world. So maybe China will be able to figure out how to nudge Trump in a good direction, and we can get something good, right? If anyone can do it, China can. China is capable of doing amazing things. So maybe China will be able to make Donald Trump go in a good direction. Meanwhile, we just have to keep building an anti-imperialist movement. That's the only option we have. We've got to build an anti-imperialist movement in America. You need to join the Center for Political Innovation. You need to come to our National 7-Day Workshop, which is coming up, From a Drop to an Ocean. You need to come to our National 7-Day Training Program in August. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Yeah, you need to get down. You get down with the movement, man. I'm just kidding. No, you need to get involved in building an anti-imperialist movement, because that's really all we've got. Noah has a great video that he made actually about how joining a movement is the ultimate self-help. Big Mike of Florida said Booker O'Malley and George Galloway have both recently endorsed a new international left organization. And you're asking about that, and we're not interested in that group because that group is basically it's not of our interest. So and you're not the first person to have asked about it, Big Mike, and the people that are involved with that have been unfriendly to us, and if those folks are involved in it, anything those folks are involved in is toxic. Those people have gone out of their way to defame and harass CPI. So if that were to change, who knows? But I looked at who's in. I had not heard about it. I don't pay attention to what those people do, but somebody like you, Big Mike, sent me a question about that, and I looked at who was involved, and I said, this isn't serious. One thing is, if you're a real organizer, you want to get along with people. You want to find allies. You want to carry out real operations to actually change the world, to bring people together. We have a relationship with the Uhuru movement. they were under attack by the FBI and for their anti-imperialist stances. And we immediately after they were attacked, we reached out to them and said, how can we support them? I attended their court dates. I attended their trial. I connected them with Tara Reid. We did important stuff to help them because they're under attack, even though we don't agree. I reached out to the Unification Church. I'm obviously from a very different background, but I reached out to them. They want peace on the Korean Peninsula. And right now their leader, in South Korea is facing criminal charges. We reached out to them and we're able to cooperate with them, and that's because we're actual organizers. We find people who have similar views, maybe don't line up with us on everything, but we find ways that we can work together for a common good. Other people see people who have common views and insult them and pay people in their organization to spread childish sex gossip about them on the internet, and put other people down and launch smear and harassment campaigns on the internet. And the reason they do that is because they're not real organizers. They just want to win the internet. They want to be famous and they see you as competition. And so such people, you just have to keep away from them. And the Americans that are involved in that group that you mentioned there, Big Mike, are toxic. And they have gone out of their way. Every time I interact with them, it is negative. They have said things about me and about CPI that are unforgivable. They are a toxic group of people, and all they want is to be famous on the internet. And they are so desperate to do that, they will engage in unprincipled, unethical behavior that is completely unacceptable. So that's really all there is to it. I don't really have much more to say, Big Mike, and it's kind of depressing. And I don't know if another thing that they have done is they will send people to my chat to ask me about them over and over and over again, to try and make me talk about them and say their name. I'm not saying their name on here. And I don't care what they do. And they can go fuck themselves as far as I'm concerned. They had every opportunity in the world to want to get along with us, to try and bury the hatchet, and they didn't. And they lie to people routinely and say they wanted us to work with them. And they just won't because Caleb is crazy. No, actually, no. We were never approached. We did then reach out to them after enough people asked us, and they told us they wanted no relationship with us. And then they went around to various other people to badmouth us and lied to them and said, oh, well, Caleb's just got an ego. We wanted him to join, but he would, and they're sacks of shit. They're lying sacks of shit, and they're not serious, and they engage in childish internet hooliganism that is not respectable. And every time I have to be around them, it always ends up in more drama. It always ends up in them and their audience and their troll farm. They have literal troll farms that they've hired harassing us. So it's just not worth our time. So, and Mike, I assume this was a sincere question on your part, Big Mike, and I appreciate that. But now that you've asked that question, please don't mention this group again. Please don't bring up anything they do again. George Galloway is a great guy, but these Americans that are associated with this group are toxic and hostile, and they're not real organizers. They are internet grifters, and probably worse than that, based on some of the stuff that we observed and, in the time that they were briefly friendly to us. So that's all there is to it. Now, the other Rumble rant that came in from Hempcar is, why are people so obsessed with JFK when we already know they did that to MLK? It makes me wonder if they shot JFK irrelevant in this manner. I heard inner cities would riot when they knew about the 1999 court case. So it is proven, it is proven that, I guess in 1999, he's referring to the fact that in 1999, the Martin Luther King Jr. family won a settlement from the American government. That court proceedings proved American government complicity in the death of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And that's not widely reported. That's just off limits. American media just acts like that never happened. But you can look it up. The Martin Luther King Jr. family did win a settlement for the FBI, and a U.S. court actually did rule that there was, U.S. government complicity in the death of MLK. And they just didn't publicize it. Right. Shouldn't there be more anger about that? Yeah, there should be. When Martin Luther King Jr. died, Mao Zedong put out a statement. And if you read the statement, he says the American government killed Martin Luther King Jr., and that was not controversial. At the time MLK died, there was almost a universal feeling in the Black community that the government was responsible. And I think even now there are many African Americans who maybe they don't know about this 1999 court case, but they consider the U.S. government to have been responsible. So, you know, I don't know all the details about that. I will say, Hempcar, there is some weird stuff, right? The family went to see James Earl Ray and apologized, but not the U.S. government. So the question is, was James Earl Ray involved or not, right? There is a court that has ruled there was U.S. government involvement. But was James Earl Ray the trigger man or not? Now, there's some weird stuff there. James Bevel, who was a witness and is certainly a questionable person. You can read all about him, and, you know, not going to hold him up as some great person. He was an eyewitness. He claimed that that James Earl Ray was not the trigger man. He was the only witness who actually made that claim. Everybody else said, yeah, James Earl Ray pulled the trigger. But then the fact that James Earl Ray was able to get out of the country so rapidly, there were people that said, well, the U.S. government helped James Earl Ray do it. That was generally the belief. But James Bevel claimed James Earl Ray was not the guy who pulled the trigger. And honestly, I don't know. Jesse Jackson was a witness to the shooting. And there was a famous comedian, who would always look at there's a famous photo of after MLK was shot on his hotel balcony, all these people pointing to where the shot came from. And many people have asked the question, why are they all not ducking in case there's another shot? If a sniper had just shot, wouldn't you be hovering? And why are they all standing there pointing? Fair question, right? There's a lot of questions that are asked, and there's, when Jesse Jackson died, I gave a tribute to Jesse Jackson, and I talked about, how his 1984 presidential campaign was related to the decline of the new communist movement, etc. There were a lot of people in the chat. I think it was you, Hempcar, who said, well, it was Dick Gregory who said that. Well, there's a lot of people in the chat who said Jesse Jackson was an FBI informant from day one. And that very well may be true. There's no question about it. I mean, that could be the truth. And a lot of people have suspected that for years. The world is a complicated place. So yeah, but it's a fair question. Why wasn't there anger? Well, I think my understanding is that there's a lot of people in the Black community who, from the moment MLK died, assumed it was a U.S. government operation. It wasn't like, first of all, this 1999 court ruling didn't get widely publicized, but also I don't think it came for those, a lot of people, it wasn't a shock. I think that there was a feeling that the U.S. government killed King from the moment he died. So yeah, but anyway, folks, it's been fun. It's been fun, and dare to struggle, dare to win. Probably back tomorrow night. Don't know why I wouldn't be, but you never know. But I'll probably be back tomorrow night. I do have a project I need to finish, right? I'm in crunch time to finish a very important project. Once that project is completed, I'm going to need all your help. I'm going to need our community to come together and do a big push, but I can't do that yet. So thanks for everything, everybody. I'm going to say good night, and we'll be back. We'll be back.
New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.